My parents hosted a grand anniversary party at a luxury hotel, then seated me where no one could see me, while my siblings toasted family unity. So I made one call, and minutes later, the entire event was canceled because the reservation was under my corporate account. You ever have one of those moments where everything you've quietly tolerated just clicks into place? Like every ignored slight, every backhanded comment, every "it's not that deep" moment suddenly adds up, and you realize maybe it was that deep after all. That was me standing in a five-star hotel ballroom surrounded by marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and a sea of people I was supposed to call family. My name's Jack. I'm 29, and I learned that night that sometimes revenge doesn't come from rage. It comes from clarity. Growing up, I was the youngest of three. My parents, Linda and George, had my brother Derek first, then my sister Claire, then me. The unexpected blessing, as Mom liked to say in front of guests, followed by a too loud laugh that made sure everyone caught the punchline. Derek was the golden boy business school charm, a jawline straight out of a toothpaste commercial. Claire was the family diplomat, always managing to stay in the good graces of everyone without ever picking a side. And me, I was the afterthought, the one they forgot to invite to brunch, but somehow remembered when they needed someone to fix their Wi-Fi or help move furniture. Still, I made peace with it. I built my own life, started my own company, small at first, then big enough that the kind of hotels my parents dreamed of hosting events, and started calling me their client. I never bragged about it. I just kept working, showing up to family stuff, smiling through the subtle digs, and, "You're so quiet lately, Jack. Everything okay?" Questions that never really wanted an honest answer. Then came their 35th wedding anniversary. Mom wanted it to be an elegant evening celebrating family and love. Her words, not mine. She called me one night, voice dripping with fake humility. "Sweetheart," she began, "you've always had such good taste. Maybe you could help us book a venue. You're so good with online things." Online things. I almost laughed. My company manages multi-million-dollar event contracts, but sure, I'm the kid who's good with online things. Still, I agreed. I found them the perfect venue, a luxury hotel downtown with panoramic city views, Michelin star catering, and a staff that would handle every detail. When the manager heard my name, his tone changed immediately. "Oh, Mr. Turner, of course. We'd be honored to host your family." Mom was thrilled. "You really came through for us this time," she said, like I'd just helped set up folding chairs for a church picnic. "We'll take it from here, though." And she did. The invitations went out, the guest list swelled to nearly 100, and when I saw the RSVP list, I realized I was the only one who hadn't been assigned a role. Derek was giving a toast. Claire was helping coordinate the slideshow. I was just a guest. That stung a little, I won't lie, but I let it go. It wasn't worth starting something over. Fast forward to the night of the party. The hotel ballroom looked like a magazine spread, soft gold lighting, tall floral arrangements, a string quartet playing in the corner. Everyone was dressed like royalty. When I walked in, a few relatives I hadn't seen in years clapped me on the back, saying things like, "Look who made it the successful one." But then Mom swooped in, smile wide eyes darting like she was scanning for imperfections. "Jack, you're here," she said, kissing the air near my cheek. "You look casual." I glanced down at my tailored suit. "It's Armani." "Of course," she said quickly, then looped her arm around mine. "Come on, let me show you where you're sitting." Now here's the thing. At events like these, you don't expect to be front and center, but you also don't expect to be exiled. And yet, as we weaved through tables of laughing adults, champagne glasses clinking, I realized we weren't stopping anywhere near the main tables. Finally, she stopped at the back, by the buffet no less, at a small table with a handful of kids. And not like teens toddlers. One was gnawing on a breadstick. Another had a balloon tied to their wrist. "There you go," Mom said cheerfully. "We didn't have enough room at the main tables, but this way you can keep an eye on the little ones. Isn't that sweet?" I blinked. "You're kidding." "Oh, don't make that face, Jack. It's just seating. You don't mind, do you?" I could feel a dozen eyes on me. My aunts whispering, my cousins pretending not to stare. Derek at the front grinning at something Dad said. "No," I said finally. "I don't mind." Mom beamed. "That's my easygoing boy." She floated off before I could say another word. I sat down. A little girl immediately asked if I knew how to blow up balloons. I said sure. Another kid spilled apple juice near my shoes. I helped clean it up with a napkin, smiling like it didn't bother me, even though inside I was simmering. Then the speeches started. Derek went first, talking about how Mom and Dad taught us about family loyalty and love. Claire followed, reading a touching tribute about how no matter where life takes us, we always come home to each other. I sat there surrounded by kids who didn't even know what was going on, listening to my siblings paint this perfect family portrait that felt like a parody of my actual life. Every word they said felt like sandpaper against my patience. The laughter, the applause, the way my parents smiled at them like they'd just won Oscars. Then Dad stood up to thank everyone. "We're so proud of our children," he said, gesturing to Derek and Claire. "They've made us so proud. Hard workers, loyal, family-oriented." His voice trailed off for half a second like he'd just remembered I existed. And of course, Jack, who helped us book this wonderful venue. Polite chuckles. I nodded once, lips tight. Something in me went very still. It wasn't the insult itself, it was the casualness of it. Like being treated as an afterthought had become tradition. I didn't argue, I didn't make a scene, I just smiled, excused myself, and stepped outside into the cool night air. I took a deep breath, phone already in my hand, before I consciously decided what I was doing. The hotel manager picked up on the second ring. "Mr. Turner, everything going well?" I looked back through the glass doors at my family laughing under the chandeliers, their perfect night in full swing. "Actually," I said calmly, "I need you to cancel the reservation under my account effective immediately." There was a pause. "Sir, you heard me. Full cancellation, event access revoked." "Understood, Mr. Turner." I hung up and slipped my phone back into my pocket, the smallest smile tugging at the corner of my mouth. 10 minutes later, I was still standing in the lobby when the hotel manager, the same one who'd spent weeks coordinating this event, walked briskly into the ballroom. I saw the confusion ripple across faces, the first hints of panic starting to replace the smiles. And that's when the chaos began. When the first signs of confusion spread across the ballroom, I almost felt bad. Almost. Through the glass doors, I watched waiters begin whispering to one another, their trays still in midair. The quartet faltered mid-song. My father's laughter cut off mid-sentence as the hotel manager leaned toward him with that particular kind of tight-lipped professionalism that only surfaces when something expensive has gone wrong. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the gestures, the wide-eyed disbelief, the sharp turns of heads toward my mother, and then toward the entrance, where I was still standing, hands in my pockets. It took about 30 seconds before Mom locked eyes with me. She tilted her head, her smile trembling like she still hoped this was some kind of misunderstanding. I gave her nothing, just a polite, unreadable look, and walked outside to the hotel garden. The air was cool, tinged with the smell of roses and city traffic. While the chaos brewed inside, I sat on a bench, phone in hand, pretending to scroll through emails. In reality, I was replaying every moment that had led me here, the years of small humiliations that didn't seem like much at the time, but had piled up like sediment. It started when I was a kid. Derek was the prodigy, the one who got the expensive tennis lessons and the fancy private school because he has potential. Claire was the family sweetheart doted on by every aunt and cousin because she had that perfect balance of beauty and brains. And me, I was the quiet one, the good kid who didn't complain. My parents liked that about me. "Jack doesn't need much," they'd say proudly, as if that were some kind of virtue rather than a subtle declaration that I didn't deserve as much effort. Birthdays were the easiest examples. Derek's 18th was a full-on catered backyard event with a live band. Claire's 18th got her a used convertible and a week-long trip to New York with Mom. Mine, a last-minute dinner at Olive Garden where they forgot to bring the cake because Mom lost track of time making Derek's work presentation the next morning. By the time I hit my 20s, I'd learned to laugh it off. "That's just how they are," I told friends. "They mean well." It was easier than admitting it hurt, so I built my distance not through rebellion, but success. While Derek was failing his second startup and blaming the market, I was working 16-hour days building a software company from scratch. While Claire was posting motivational quotes about self-care on Instagram, I was securing investment rounds and negotiating contracts with international partners. And through it all, I never said a word to my parents about what I was building. It wasn't bitterness, it was self-preservation. If they didn't know, they couldn't diminish it. Still, they found ways to pull me back in. The house needed repairs. "Jack, can you look at the estimate?" Derek needed introductions. "Jack, setting up her online boutique. It'll only take an hour, I promise." They always came to me when they needed something and always forgot me the moment it was done. And tonight, the pattern had played out again, just on a grander stage. I could hear the muffled echoes of raised voices inside the ballroom. The staff was trying to explain that the reservation had been canceled by the account holder. My account. I hadn't done it out of cruelty, not yet. It was just an interruption, a pause, a reminder that I existed and that maybe they shouldn't take my silence as consent anymore. But as I sat there, the heavy doors opened behind me. The sound of heels clicked across the marble floor. I didn't turn around until I heard her voice. "Jack," Mom said tightly, "what on earth is going on?" She looked furious, but in that contained, socially acceptable way she'd mastered over the years. Even in crisis, she wouldn't let the mask slip fully. I asked them to cancel the event, I said evenly. Her eyes widened. You what? It's my corporate account. The reservation was under my company's name. I just called to terminate it. You can't be serious, she hissed, glancing back toward the chaos behind her. Do you realize how that looks? People are in there wondering what's happening. Your father is furious. Good, I said simply. She blinked like I'd just spoken a foreign language. Good. You think embarrassing us in front of everyone we know is good? I think it's long overdue, I replied. But don't worry, Mom. It's just a seating issue, right? I'll sit it out. Her face twisted. Don't you dare get smart with me. This isn't about you, Jack. This is about family. Family. That word again, the word they wielded like a shield every time they wanted me to accept being lesser. I stood up slowly, hands still in my pockets. You're right. It's not about me. It never is. Before she could answer, Derek stormed out. His tie was loosened, his face red. Are you insane, Jack? What's your problem? I almost laughed. You'll have to be more specific. Don't play dumb. You humiliated Mom and Dad. You ruined their night. Did I tilted my head. Or did I just stop playing along? He scoffed, glancing at Mom for backup. You always do this. Make everything about you when you're not the center of attention. Can't stand that someone else gets the spotlight, huh? That made me laugh outright. You mean the spotlight I didn't ask for, the one you and Mom guard like a family heirloom? He took a step closer. You think you're so much better than us now, huh? With your fancy company and your suits and your big words. Newsflash, Jack, you're still the weird little kid who never fit in. Mom didn't stop him. She just crossed her arms, watching me like she was waiting for me to admit defeat. Something inside me shifted then, not anger exactly, but something colder. Like realizing you've been holding a door open for years and finally deciding to let it close. Thanks for reminding me, Derek, I said quietly. It's good to know nothing's changed. He sneered, ready to say something else, but Claire appeared at the doorway, her expression softer, confused. What's happening? Mom said the hotel canceled. I looked at her and felt a flicker of guilt. Claire wasn't cruel. She was just complicit, always trying to keep the peace, even when peace meant silence. I canceled it, I said plainly. Her mouth fell open. Why would you, Jack? They worked so hard on this. Did they? I asked. Or did they work hard, making sure I'd never feel like part of it? Don't be dramatic, Mom snapped. You're overreacting. You were being ungrateful about seating. I told you we didn't have space. I cut her off. You had space for 50 extended relatives, 3 ex-coworkers, and a neighbor's dog, but not for your own son. You sat me at the kids' table, Mom. Her face went red. It was a misunderstanding. No, I said. It was a message loud and clear. For the first time that night, there was silence. Derek's mouth opened and closed like he wanted to argue, but nothing came out. Claire just stared wide-eyed. Then Mom's expression hardened. You've always been so sensitive, she said, her voice dripping with condescension. Everything turns into an insult with you. Maybe if you tried being part of this family instead of isolating yourself all the time, things would be different. There it was, the gaslighting polished to perfection. I felt that old familiar guilt rise for a split second, the one they'd conditioned into me since I was a teenager. Maybe it really is my fault. Maybe I'm overreacting. But then I remembered that moment inside the applause for Derek's toast, the way Dad had almost forgotten my name, the laughter when I sat down beside the toddlers. I met her gaze and said quietly, I used to believe that. Not anymore. Derek laughed under his breath. You're unbelievable. You think this makes you look strong? You just made yourself the villain, Jack. Maybe, I said, but at least I'm the villain in a story I finally get to write. That shut him up. Behind them, through the open doors, guests were starting to drift toward the lobby, confused. The staff was escorting people out, politely offering apologies and vouchers. My father stood near the podium, rubbing his temples as the decorations were quietly dismantled around him. Mom turned back to me, voice low and sharp. You fix this, right now. Call them and tell them to restart the event. I shook my head. Not happening. Jack, she warned, don't make me regret trusting you with this. I almost smiled. You didn't trust me, you used me. There's a difference. She opened her mouth to reply, but then something behind her caught her attention. Dad had come out now, his face pale with controlled fury. He looked at me like a man who'd just realized his youngest son wasn't the pushover he remembered. Jack, he said, voice low and authoritative, the same tone he used when I was a kid and forgot to mow the lawn. Enough. Fix it. No, I said simply. He blinked. Excuse me. I said no. I'm done fixing things I didn't break. His jaw tightened. You're embarrassing this family. I think this family's been embarrassing itself for years, I said, my voice calm even as my pulse raced. Mom gasped. Derek muttered something under his breath. Claire looked like she wanted to disappear. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care. Because for the first time, they actually looked at me, not through me, not around me, but at me. The tension hung thick in the air, heavy as the chandelier light reflecting off the marble. Then my phone buzzed. I glanced at it and saw the notification that the hotel had confirmed the full cancellation, non-refundable, of course. Mom saw the look on my face and went pale. Jack, what did you do? I slid the phone back into my pocket and took a step closer, lowering my voice. I didn't do anything to you that you haven't been doing to me my entire life. I just gave it a setting and an audience. Her hand trembled slightly. Dad's mouth opened, but before he could speak, one of the hotel staff approached timidly. Mr. and Mrs. Turner, we'll need everyone to vacate the ballroom within 10 minutes. Mom turned to him, desperate. There must be some mistake. This is our anniversary. The staff member looked apologetic. I'm so sorry, ma'am, but the reservation has been rescinded by the account holder. Our system can't override that. I watched the words hit her like physical blows. The perfect image she'd built for years, the polished family, the adoring guests, the speeches about unity, it was all unraveling in real time. And that was only the beginning, because what none of them knew yet was that the real reckoning hadn't even started. It's funny how silence can sound louder than shouting when it's filled with disappointment. The ballroom had gone from music and laughter to this uncomfortable quiet that buzzed in the air like static. Guests were whispering, packing up, trying to piece together what had happened without daring to ask directly. Some gave me looks confused, some judgmental, some curious. I didn't care. My father, George Turner, always the image of control, stood perfectly still in the center of the chaos, his expression unreadable. My mother hovered beside him, her smile long gone, lips pressed so tightly they were nearly white. Derek was pacing like a caged animal, muttering to himself. Claire kept trying to mediate, her voice shaking as she spoke to the staff, her words lost in the noise. I stayed near the entrance watching it all unfold. I thought I'd feel satisfaction, maybe even some twisted sense of justice. But instead, what I felt was exhaustion, the kind that sits deep in your bones, the kind that comes from years of pretending things don't hurt. Dad finally turned toward me, his face flushed. Jack office. Now. I almost laughed. He said it the same way he used to when I was a teenager who forgot curfew. But I followed him out of the ballroom and down the hall toward one of the smaller conference rooms the hotel had reserved for family use. Claire trailed behind us, trying to calm everyone down, while Mom and Derek followed like a storm brewing at my back. The door shut behind us, muffling the distant chatter from the guests. For a second, no one spoke. Then Dad slammed his hand on the table. Do you realize what you've done? I met his glare. Yes. You've humiliated us, he said. Your mother is mortified. Your siblings are. Perfect, I interrupted. They're perfect, I know. Mom's voice cut through sharp as glass. This isn't about favoritism, Jack. It's about respect. You've crossed a line. Respect, I repeated, my voice rising slightly. You sat me at the kids' table, Mom, beside toddlers. How much more disrespect could you get? It was a misunderstanding, she snapped. You're being ridiculous. Do you have any idea how hard we worked for this night? Oh, I'm sure it was exhausting, I said dryly. Ordering decorations and practicing speeches about family unity. Derek stepped forward, finger jabbing in my direction. You've always had a chip on your shoulder, always playing the victim. You think the world's out to get you, newsflash, it's not. It just doesn't revolve around you. I never wanted it to, I said quietly. I just wanted to belong in it. For a second, he hesitated. Just a second. Then he smirked. You were never cut out for this family's image. You're not charming enough, not social enough, not fake enough. I finished for him. That hit something. His face twisted. You're unbelievable. You act like you're better than us. But guess what? You wouldn't even have that company if Dad hadn't given you the starting money. I froze. The air in the room seemed to shift. What? I asked slowly. Derek crossed his arms, smiling like he'd just thrown a knockout punch. You didn't tell him, he said to Dad. Mom's eyes darted to my father's. Claire looked lost. Tell me what, I said, my voice low. Dad cleared his throat. It's not important. The hell it isn't, I said, stepping forward. What is he talking about? My father sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. When you first started your company, your mother and I helped. Financially. I frowned. No, you didn't. I used my savings. My first investor came 6 months later. He shook his head slowly. Your savings were part of it. Yes, but the account you withdrew from some of that was money we transferred. What? I said again, my pulse quickening. We set up an account when you were younger, Mom said quickly, trying to sound soothing. You didn't know about it. It was meant for emergencies. Your father added to it over the years. It wasn't much, just a little help to get you started. That didn't sound right. I remembered that account. It had my name on it, just mine. I'd been careful with every cent. Why are you saying this like it's a favor? I said slowly. You didn't tell me about it. You made it sound like I earned every dollar myself. Mom's tone shifted, gentle but condescending. Oh, Jack, we just didn't want you to feel guilty accepting help. You've always been so sensitive about independence. I stared at her. You mean you didn't want me to know you were taking credit for it? Derek snorted. There it is. The paranoia again. Claire finally spoke, voice trembling. Wait, if they helped him, why didn't you tell him that's kind of a big deal? Dad waved it off. It's not a big deal. We did what parents do, supported our child. Without telling me, I said, anger rising now, without giving me the choice. You should be grateful, Mom said sharply. You wouldn't even have that company without us. And that was the moment, the click, the moment where something inside me broke cleanly in half. I realized it wasn't about the money. It was about control. All those years, I thought I'd escaped their grasp, built something of my own, carved out an identity, independent from their shadow. And now I saw it. They'd left a thread tied to me all along, just long enough for them to pull when they needed to remind me where I came from. Wow, I said, finally laughing once under my breath. That's impressive even for you. Mom crossed her arms. Don't be sarcastic. Oh, I'm not. I'm genuinely amazed. You spent years undermining me, telling everyone I was ungrateful, difficult, distant. And all the while you were waiting to drop this little revelation so you could say, I owe you everything. Derek raised an eyebrow. Well, don't you? That did it. I turned to him, my voice low, shaking but steady. You know what's funny, Derek? You've borrowed money from Dad 3 times to fund your startups. You've crashed every one of them. You live in the house he bought for you, drive a car he pays for, and you still call yourself self-made. But yeah, sure, I'm the one who owes them everything. His face reddened instantly. That's not the same thing. Of course it's not, I said. Because you're the favorite, Mom gasped. Don't start with that nonsense again. It's not nonsense, I said louder now. It's the truth. You've spent my whole life pretending I'm part of this family while constantly reminding me I'm not quite enough. I was good enough to do your dirty work, to fix things, to book venues, to help out, but never good enough to be celebrated. Stop it, Mom snapped. I didn't. You didn't even invite me to your vow renewal in Maui. You said it was just for close family. I found out from Facebook. Her face went pale. That was years ago. Let it go. I did, I said quietly, until tonight. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Dad leaned back in his chair, his expression cold. If this is about money, Jack, we can settle it. We'll have reviewed and adjust whatever you think is fair. That stung worse than anything else. You really think this is about money? I said softly. It's about respect. Derek scoffed. Respect isn't given, it's earned. I've been earning it my entire life, I said. You just never wanted to see it. Mom threw up her hands. Oh, for heaven's sake, stop acting like some victim of oppression. We gave you everything. We supported you, loved you, and you turn around and humiliate us in front of everyone we know. Love me? I asked. No, you managed me. There's a difference. The room went very quiet. Then Dad said something I'll never forget. You're not as important as you think you are, Jack. He said it calmly, almost kindly, but it landed like a knife. Mom didn't flinch. Derek smirked. Claire looked horrified. I stared at him, feeling the words sink deep. All the late-night calls I'd answered, the favors I'd done, the birthdays I'd let slide. It all lined up, mosaic of indifference. Got it, I said, finally nodding once. That's all I needed to hear. I turned toward the door, but Mom's voice stopped me. Where are you going? Home, I said simply. Don't you dare walk out on us. Dad said, his tone sharp again. I paused at the doorway and turned back, meeting his eyes. You already did that years ago. And then I left. The hallway outside felt colder than before. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked calm, but my hands were trembling. I walked past the ballroom where guests were still milling around, whispering. Some looked at me, others avoiding my gaze. As I passed, I heard one of my aunts mutter, "Such a shame. He's always been so dramatic." I didn't even slow down. I stepped into the elevator, pressed the button for the lobby, and as the doors closed, I let out a long, shaky breath. I thought that would be the end of it, that I'd finally drawn my line and walked away. But when I reached the lobby, my phone buzzed again, from Claire. "Jack, please come back upstairs. They're saying things about you. You need to hear this." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then, against my better judgment, I went back. And what I heard when I opened that door was worse than I ever imagined. When I stepped back into the hallway, I could hear my family's voices through the cracked door before I even entered the room. The tone was different now, lower, more conspiratorial. The kind of whispering that only happens when people think you're out of your shot. Claire had texted me 10 minutes ago asking me to come back. I'd almost ignored her, but curiosity, or maybe some small, desperate need to know, pulled me back. I don't know what I expected. Maybe guilt, maybe regret. But what I heard instead made me realize I had never truly been part of them. I had just been orbiting around a family that tolerated me like a shadow they couldn't quite get rid of. I leaned quietly against the wall outside, the hum of the air conditioning masking my presence. Mom's voice came first. "He's always been ungrateful, George. Always. I don't know where we went wrong." Derek sighed dramatically. "He's unstable. You saw what he did tonight. Who cancels their own parents' party? That's not normal." Dad's voice was heavy measured. "He embarrassed us, that's for sure. And now half the people in that room think we raised some entitled brat." I felt my chest tighten, but I stayed silent. Claire's voice came next, soft, hesitant. "He's not entitled, Dad. He's just hurt." Mom scoffed. "Oh, please, don't start defending him. You always fall for his pity act. He does this to make us look bad. He's been doing it for years, acting like he's some victim of his own family. It's pathetic." "Linda," Dad murmured, "let's not say things we'll regret." But she didn't stop. She never did. "No, I'm tired of pretending. He's always been difficult. I can't count how many times I've had to smooth things over because of his attitude. Remember when he skipped Christmas 3 years ago? I told everyone he was sick, but you and I both know he just couldn't handle not being the center of attention." Derek chuckled. "That's Jack for you. Emotionally allergic to sharing a spotlight." I closed my eyes, jaw tight. That Christmas, I hadn't skipped it out of spite. I'd stayed home because I was working through a burnout so deep I could barely get out of bed. I told Mom I wasn't doing well, that I needed space. Her response had been a curt, "We'll miss you," followed by radio silence for months. Claire spoke again, her voice pleading now. "He's not like that. He's just different. You all treat him like he's disposable." Mom's tone turned icy. "Watch yourself, Claire. You don't know what he's capable of. He's manipulative." Manipulative. That word cut deep. Dad added, "He's too emotional. Always was. That's why we never could rely on him for anything serious. You give him responsibility, he finds a way to make it personal." "That's not true," Claire whispered. But Mom had already moved on, her voice growing distant and cold. "Honestly, maybe this is a good thing. Maybe people will finally see who he really is. All that self-made nonsense, please. We practically funded his company. He wouldn't have gotten anywhere without us." There it was again, the lie they needed to believe. And Derek, always eager to twist the knife, laughed under his breath. "I mean, come on. He acts like a CEO, but he still calls me to fix his tax forms. You'd think the business genius could figure that out himself." "That's not true," Claire snapped. "He helped you with your taxes last year." "Oh, right," Derek said with mock innocence. "Guess I mixed that up. Hard to keep track of who's doing who a favor these days." The room went quiet for a moment before Mom spoke again, voice dripping with disdain. "I'm done coddling him. From now on, he's on his own. No more invitations, no more favors. He wants to be independent, fine. Let's see how far that gets him." Something inside me twisted. I should have walked away. I should have left the building, gotten in my car, and driven home without looking back. But I stood there, rooted, my chest burning with a strange combination of sadness and clarity. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn love that had conditions, trying to meet expectations that were designed for me to fail. And in that moment, I understood that I never stood a chance. I stepped into the doorway quietly. The room fell silent. Claire looked at me first, her face, pale eyes wide with guilt. Derek froze mid-smirk. My mother's lips parted slightly. Dad was the only one who didn't flinch. "How long have you been standing there?" Mom asked, her voice unsteady now. "Long enough," I said. No one spoke. The air was thick, heavy with unspoken things. I looked at each of them slowly. You know, I used to think that if I worked hard enough, you'd see me differently. That maybe one day you'd actually, I don't know, be proud of me. But I get it now. I was never part of the picture. I was the background. Mom straightened in her chair, recovering her poise. Don't twist our words, Jack. You know we love you. I laughed quietly. Love me? You don't even like me. Stop being dramatic, Derek muttered. We're just telling the truth. No, I said softly. You're telling your version of it. The one that makes you all look like the heroes. Dad finally stood. You're being unfair. I met his gaze. No, I'm being honest, maybe for the first time in my life. Claire stood too, looking between us helplessly. Please stop. This isn't helping anyone. But it wasn't an argument anymore. It was a dissection. Years of suppressed resentment finally exposed to air. Mom sighed and rubbed her temples. You've always been so ungrateful. Everything turns into an attack with you. We try to help and you make us out to be villains. You didn't help, I said. You controlled. Every time I tried to stand on my own, you pulled me back. Every success I had, you turned into something you could claim credit for. Because we earned it, Derek shouted suddenly. We supported you. We made you who you are. I turned toward him, voice steady. You didn't make me. You ignored me until I stopped asking for help. Everything I built despite you. That one landed. Derek's expression flickered between anger and something like hurt. Mom gasped again. Dad's face darkened. You watch your tone, he said quietly. I took a step back. Suddenly tired of the tension, the power plays, the constant need to prove something. Don't worry, I said softly. You'll never have to hear my tone again. And with that, I left for the second time that night. No one followed me this time. The elevator ride down felt endless. The mirrored walls reflected a version of me I barely recognized. Eyes hollow, posture rigid, face drained of color. When I reached the lobby, the hotel manager spotted me instantly. Mr. Turner, he said carefully, we've completed the cancellation as requested. Do you need us to process the refund? Keep it, I said. Consider it a donation to the staff. You've earned it more than the people upstairs. He blinked, unsure if I was joking. I wasn't. Outside, the city lights glowed like distant fires. I walked out into the night, my jacket slung over my arm. The distant hum of traffic, the only sound that didn't feel hostile. For the first time in years, I had no plan. I took a cab back to my apartment, a quiet space overlooking the city skyline. Normally, that view gave me peace. Tonight, it just felt empty. I poured myself a glass of water, set it on the counter, and stood there staring at it like it might offer answers. My phone buzzed again this time, not Claire. Mom. The message was short. We're disappointed in you. Don't contact us again until you're ready to apologize. I didn't reply. A few minutes later, another message came through. This one from Derek. Hope it was worth it, little brother. You just burned every bridge you had. I turned the phone face down on the counter. Then Claire called. For a moment, I considered ignoring it. But something about her made me pick up. Jack, her voice was small, shaking. Yeah. I'm sorry, she said. I tried to stop them. I didn't know they were going to say those things, I swear. I know, I said quietly. Are you okay? I hesitated. No, but I will be. Jack, she said softly. They're furious. They're already talking about cutting you out of everything. Dad said something about the will. I laughed under my breath. Of course he did. I'm serious, she said. He's calling the lawyer tomorrow morning. I leaned against the counter, rubbing my eyes. Claire, let them. I'm done fighting for a seat at their table. Then what are you going to do? She asked. I looked out the window at the city below, lights flickering like stars. What I do best, I said quietly. Build something they can't touch. She didn't answer right away. Then she whispered, You don't deserve this. None of us do, I said. But they taught me one thing tonight. When someone shows you your place in their story, you either accept it or you start writing your own. There was silence on the line. Then she said, Whatever you're planning, just don't do anything you'll regret. I smiled faintly. Don't worry, Claire. I'm done reacting. I'm thinking now. We said goodbye, and when the call ended, I stood there in the quiet apartment surrounded by the hum of the refrigerator and the faint buzz of city life outside. It hit me then how final it all felt. The bridge wasn't just burned, it was ashes in the wind. And yet beneath the exhaustion, beneath the sadness, there was something else flickering awake. Something sharp. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to fix things. I was planning. And if my family thought tonight was chaos, they hadn't seen anything yet. The morning after the party, my apartment was filled with that kind of silence that feels too deliberate. The kind that presses against your eardrums until you start hearing your own thoughts louder than you want to. My phone was still on the counter, the screen black face down, as if it too had had enough of the night before. I hadn't slept. I just sat there watching the light crawl across the floor, replaying every moment from the night. The speeches, the fake smiles, the word ungrateful echoing in my head like a bad song on repeat. It should have broken me. A few years earlier, it probably would have. Back then, I still wanted their approval even when I swore I didn't. I would have sent an apologetic message, told myself it's not worth losing family over, and quietly carried the guilt they handed me. But this time was different. This time, something inside me had finally gone quiet. Not the defeated kind of quiet, but the calm before the storm kind. I didn't go to work that day. Instead, I opened my laptop, pulled up the contracts tied to my corporate accounts, and started reorganizing everything. The event management branch, the investment portfolios, the subsidiaries under Turner Dynamics, my company. It was all mine, every bit of it. The help my parents claimed to have given me wasn't even a fraction of what I'd built since. By the afternoon, I was sitting in a meeting with my COO, a no-nonsense woman named Priya, who had been with me since the early days. She walked into my office holding 2 coffees and a stack of documents. "You look like you've seen ghosts," she said, placing 1 cup in front of me. "Something like that," I said. She studied me. "You okay?" "Depends on your definition," I said. "But yeah, I think I am." She raised an eyebrow. "That's vague enough to worry me." I smiled faintly. "I just realized I've been building something that can finally stand on its own. No strings attached." She nodded slowly. "You mean personally or professionally?" "Both," I said. Priya leaned against the desk. "Well, professionally, we've been due for a big move anyway. The investors from Seattle reached out again. They're offering to double the valuation if we expand the enterprise licensing." I blinked. "Double?" "Yep," she said casually, sipping her coffee. "Apparently someone leaked our client list. They want in before we blow up. Normally I would have been cautious. Expansion meant risk, long nights, endless logistics. But that morning it felt symbolic. Like the universe had just nudged me and said, "Go ahead, let them see what they threw away." "Do it," I said. Priya smiled. "I thought you'd say that." The next few weeks were a blur of momentum. The Seattle deal closed. Then a London firm reached out for partnership. By month's end, Turner Dynamics wasn't just a boutique software company anymore. It was a contender. We were scaling faster than I'd ever thought possible, and through it all, I stayed quiet. No public statements, no LinkedIn posts, no "look how far I've come" speeches. I just worked quietly, methodically. My family didn't reach out either. Not mom, not dad, not Derek. The only one who texted occasionally was Claire. Simple things. "Hey, how are you holding up?" Or "Mom's been talking about you again. Ignore it." I appreciated it, but I never said much back. I needed distance to think clearly. A month after the party, I got an invitation to a family dinner. It wasn't from my parents. It was from Claire. She wrote, "Please come. It's just us siblings. No drama, I promise." Against my better judgment, I went. We met at a small Italian place downtown, the kind of cozy, dimly lit restaurant that tries to make you forget the world outside. Derek was already there when I arrived, sitting at the table with a glass of red wine and that smug half smile he'd inherited from Dad. "Look who showed up," he said as I sat down. "Didn't think you'd have time for us little people anymore." I ignored the jab. "Good to see you too." Claire gave me a warning look. "Don't start, Derek." He shrugged. "Just making conversation." The waiter came, we ordered, and for a while it was almost normal. Claire asked about my company, and I gave short answers. Derek talked about some new investment opportunity he was exploring, which I knew was code for another half-baked startup idea. But as the dinner went on, the conversation took a turn. So Derek said, casually swirling his wine, "I heard Mom and Dad are making some changes to the estate plan." I didn't look up. "Not my concern." "Maybe it should be," he said. "You might be surprised who's getting what." Claire glared at him. "Don't start this." "What you should know," Derek said with a smirk. "Dad's reassigning the house and the investment properties to me. Claire gets Mom's jewelry and trust fund. And Jack," he trailed off, pretending to think. "What was it again?" "All right, nothing." I set my fork down slowly. "You're proud of that." He leaned back, grin widening. "I'm just saying, actions have consequences. Maybe if you hadn't thrown a tantrum at their anniversary, things would look different," Derek Claire said warningly. But I wasn't angry, not really. Not anymore. I just smiled. "You know what's funny? You still think you're inheriting something that matters." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Just that everything you're clinging to is temporary," I said. "You're fighting over leftovers while I've been building the kitchen." He scoffed. "Oh, please. You think your little company makes you untouchable? I looked at him evenly. No, I know it does. Claire glanced between us, nervous. Guys, please. But I wasn't escalating. I was just stating a fact. Turner Dynamics was worth more than my parents' entire portfolio combined, and they didn't even know it. After dinner, as we stood outside by the parking lot, Claire touched my arm. You shouldn't have come. He wanted a reaction. I know I said, but it's fine. It reminded me why I stopped needing any of them. She looked at me sadly. You're really done, huh? Completely, and I meant it. The next few months cemented it. My company expanded into Europe. I was traveling constantly, London, Berlin, Tokyo. Everywhere I went, I felt freer, lighter. I'd built something from nothing, and now I was finally standing on solid ground. Then one morning, while sitting in my London office, I got an email from a familiar name, George Turner. The subject line was simple: we need to talk. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Jack, your mother and I have been thinking a lot about what happened. Things were said that shouldn't have been. I understand you're angry, but families shouldn't be divided like this. Your mother's health hasn't been great lately, and it's been weighing on her. We'd like to see you. Dad. I read it twice. It was short, formal, carefully worded like a business letter. Part of me wanted to delete it and move on, but another part, that small, stubborn piece that still cared, hesitated. So I replied, I'll be in town next week. Let's meet, just the two of us. He responded within minutes. Your mother will be there too. Friday night, 7 p.m. The house. When Friday came, I drove up the long driveway to my childhood home for the first time in over a year. The same manicured hedges, the same ornate gate, the same sense of staged perfection. Mom greeted me at the door, her smile brittle. You look successful, she said, scanning my suit like she was appraising a stranger. Thanks, I said. Dad was in the study papers spread out on the desk. He didn't waste time. I'll be direct, he said. We've been having financial trouble. Some investments went south. The market's been unpredictable. I said nothing, he continued. We were hoping you could help. Just a short-term loan. You're doing well, obviously. There it was the real reason. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, just another transaction. How much, I asked? He hesitated. 200,000, Mom added quickly. We'll pay it back, of course. You know we're good for it. I studied them quietly. For years, I'd been the one chasing their approval. Now here they were, desperate, uncertain, and pretending it wasn't obvious. It wasn't anger I felt. It was clarity. I'll think about it, I said, finally standing up. Jack, Mom said, reaching for my arm. Please, this isn't about money. It's about family. I met her eyes. That's what you said at the party. But it was always about money, wasn't it? She blinked, taken aback. That's not fair. No, I said quietly. It's finally fair. And then I walked out. That night, as I sat in my car overlooking the city skyline, I realized something had shifted completely. I wasn't the black sheep anymore. I was the storm they didn't see coming. Over the next few weeks, my company launched a new division, event management software tailored to luxury clients. The same hotel chain from the anniversary party was our first partner. I smiled at the irony. The more success I built, the more detached I felt from the people who once defined me. And yet deep down, I knew this story wasn't finished. Because people like my parents, people who can't stand losing control, never stop trying to take it back. And I had a feeling they were about to try. The months after I walked away were careful, measured, deliberate. I didn't rush into theatrics. Revenge, I'd learned, isn't a fireworks show. It's a quietly built machine that hums until the moment you flip the switch. I tightened the company's contracts, moved key accounts on a separate legal entities, and quietly pushed our new luxury event platform into markets my parents cared about most. High-end venues, private clubs, the social circuits they used to parade through. Also made sure the one vendor they bragged about for years, the florist, the caterer, the band, was on my side. Small favors, old debts, repaid, introductions made. Nothing dramatic, just infrastructure and influence. When the time came to pull the thread, I didn't call a press conference. I sent a single, very polite email that morning to the hotel's corporate office. Subject line: contract review request, Turner Events/Turner Dynamics. In it, I noted our of their preferred event management suite and asked to review all standing reservations under our corporate clients to ensure no conflicts with newly integrated software. A bored legal clerk forwarded it to the events manager who'd once fawned over my parents' booking. She opened the file, and because I'd set everything up weeks ago, it only took a few clicks to see what I already knew. The anniversary reservation was still listed under my company's client ID, tied to an old corporate card that technically hadn't been updated. The manager called our legal team. Our legal team called my assistant. My assistant called me and said we can either grandfather this through or ask for verification. I told her to verify. I watched the fireworks from my laptop. Polite emails, confirmation requests. The manager's voice trembling the first time she had to say the words account verification to my mother on the phone. I let it escalate just enough to leave plausible deniability. Everything above board paper trails tidy, no dramatic language. I wasn't trying to destroy them. I was trying to show them what it felt like to have control taken away in a room full of people who liked their version of the truth. Then I made one more move that felt almost petty and perfectly necessary. I arranged through a mutual acquaintance I knew from the art circles my parents frequented for a feature in a society column about the Turner Family Philanthropy Gala, a story my parents loved to be in, complete with photos and flattering quotes. The editor, who owed me a favor, asked for an updated guest list to coordinate photographers. I sent him an accurate one minus the Turners. Instead, I included my new high-value clients, investors, and partners, people who like cocktails and headlines. The piece went live that afternoon with a headline that would have made Mom proud if she'd been in it. I watched my phone as the first messages arrived. Confusion, then irritation, then from Derek, a short, taut text. "What did you do?" I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the family group chat and posted one sentence. No flourish, no gloating, just practical logistics. Reminder: Turner House charity auction this Saturday, 6 p.m., formal attire. I hit send and walked away from my desk. For the first time since the anniversary, I felt something close to peace. But as the weekend approached and RSVPs started pouring into the house, I got a call from Claire, her voice small, urgent. "Jack, something's wrong," she said. "Dad's been getting calls all morning. People are asking if the party is still on. There's talk. Someone says you're behind the hotel cancellation and the society piece. They're saying the charity is a sham." "Let them talk," I said quietly. "Let them figure it out." She hesitated. "They're panicking. Dad's furious. He says he's going to make this right, whatever it takes." "That won't help them," I said. "He can't buy back respect he never gave." She swallowed. "You realize if he fights back publicly, it could get messy, right? And legal threats, accusations." "I know." The line went quiet for a beat, then Claire whispered, "Be careful, Jack." I let out a breath that felt like a laugh and promised nothing. I'd set things in motion. Now I was going to watch them try to salvage the life they'd built on narratives and polite smiles. The first domino had fallen. The second was teetering. And just before I closed my laptop that night, one last message popped up on my screen from an unknown number. "You crossed a line. Don't expect us to sit quietly." I stared at it, thumb hovering over the call button, and then the phone rang. When the fallout hit, it didn't come as a single explosion. It came like an avalanche of cracks spreading through the perfect porcelain image my parents had spent decades polishing. It started with whispers. One of my father's golf buddies, someone who prided himself on always knowing the real story, called to ask why the Turner Charity Gala had been listed under my company's brand and not the family's. My father laughed it off, at first said it was a clerical mix-up. But by the second call, he'd realized the sponsors had already moved their donations elsewhere. The Turner's philanthropy legacy had quietly been absorbed by Turner Dynamics Foundation Mine. The social circle they'd built their reputation on turned fast. Invitations dried up. Their names slipped off guest lists. Mom's friends stopped dropping by for afternoon coffee. One by one, the cracks became visible enough that they couldn't hide them anymore. Then came the financial storm. The two investment properties my parents had transferred to Derek, both had been purchased under leveraged loans that depended on a partnership deal one I'd dissolved when I restructured the corporate accounts. Overnight, the banks froze the lines of credit. Derek called me, panicked. "Jack, you have to fix this," he said, voice tight with disbelief. "You caused it." "No," I said evenly. "I just stopped cleaning up your messes." He cursed under his breath, then went silent. I didn't hang up. I let him listen to his own breathing until he muttered, "You'll regret this." But I didn't. 2 weeks later, I got an email from the same hotel manager from the anniversary night. They'd canceled the Turners' upcoming business luncheon after learning the original account had been blacklisted for unpaid invoices. Apparently, Derek had tried to book it under a different name and used a corporate number tied to his startup, the one already flagged for fraud. That story made its way into a local business column. Turner Family Ventures faces legal scrutiny. And the headline wasn't mine, but I won't pretend I didn't smile when I read it. Meanwhile, Mom tried to play the sympathy card. She called Claire, crying about how I'd ruined the family. Claire told her the truth, that the family had ruined itself long before I ever touched a thing. The final crack came when I received an envelope in the mail, no return address, just my name written in my father's neat handwriting. Inside was a single check for $200,000 the same amount they'd asked me for months earlier. Attached was a note that read, "We don't need your money. Consider this repayment for the account we helped start your business with. We're even now." It was supposed to sting. It didn't. I deposited the check directly into the Turner Foundation account, the charity branch that now bore my name, and used it to fund scholarships for students who came from families like mine, controlling, dismissive, polished on the outside and hollow on the inside. News spread fast about the new foundation's first major donation. The article mentioned tech entrepreneur Jack Turner's inspiring story of independence and rebuilding after family estrangement. Mom must have seen it. She didn't call, neither did Dad. Derek moved to another city within a month. Claire, though, she texted me a photo one night. My parents' house dark except for one upstairs light. The caption read, "They finally stopped hosting parties." I stared at it for a long time before replying, "Good. Maybe they'll finally listen to the silence." A week later, I went back to the hotel, the same one where everything had started. The staff recognized me, instantly treating me like an old friend. The manager asked, smiling nervously, "Planning another event, Mr. Turner?" "Something like that," I said. I booked the smallest room. They had a quiet, intimate space overlooking the city. Not for revenge, not for validation, but for closure. That evening, I sat there alone with a glass of whiskey and the skyline glittering through the windows, replaying the last year like a movie I'd finally walked out of halfway through. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for anyone's approval. I wasn't trying to fix what I didn't break. I lifted my glass, watching the amber catch the light, and said softly to the empty room, "Here's to the family who taught me everything, just not in the way they intended." Then I smiled, finished the drink, and walked out into the night.